This is Matt Russell, and welcome to the DailyFX Forum.
Hello, and welcome to the DailyFX Forum Highlights video for Monday, November 30th. Just scanning through the forums tonight. Here's a post by Brad1199, an excellent post here speaking about how he was stopped out at break even. And these are the things that I like to see. I trust a trader who speaks about his losses, who's not afraid to speak about them. And in this case, he was stopped out at break even. I remember this trade that he posted last week. Was long here, and then prices came down to his entry point, and he got out. And this is one of the things that I would a forum member who comes on here and speaks about, let's say, 10 consecutive losses. He got in at this area, he got stopped out at break even. That's a trader who I trust in the future has a good chance here of success. What usually happens on the forum, what I see very often, is traders coming on and they only speak about their wins, and that's a sort of fantasy world, trying to impress people. It really doesn't work that way. So again, don't be ashamed and don't be embarrassed to speak about your losses. So scrolling down here now to see Mellon, a good post here speaking about how far the Aussie dollar has stretched from the 55 exponential moving average, and this is the weekly chart. And he's also speaking about prices sooner or later there's going to be a reversion to the mean down to the 82 area. The one thing I would mention with moving averages, and especially here on a weekly chart, what you have to remember is that given the velocity of this trend to the upside, this line will begin to start sloping upwards quite heavily. So when you say 82, that could be 84 or 85. But again, in terms of visualization purposes, this is an excellent chart. But in terms of setting up trades, I just don't really trust it. So that's something that we would actually look for clear and linear reasons to enter the trade. And scrolling down here a little bit further, some more posts by Brad1199 speaking about a short entry on the CAD, and then a post here by R. Bashara speaking about the Aussie dollar, the fibs on the Aussie dollar, and most would agree that the Aussie has broken through its uptrend. So he's looking for fib retracements now around the 38.2, and obviously prices are nowhere near that 38.2, only because obviously the uptrend has been so severe. So looking at the charts now, and I wanted to actually start with the euro dollar and what I see, because we did have, and this is the uptrend that Brad was using, and as well as myself, we're both using for the euro dollar. And I want to mention this candle right here, the long wick to the downside, and obviously what that represents is, at one point this candle was a large, red, ugly-looking candle, but buyers came in at that support line, maybe just a few pips beneath it, and pushed the pair back up. There could be fundamental reasons. The Dubai news story. I mean, personally, I don't put any weight into that stuff. I'm sure there's a place called Dubai. I've seen pictures of that palm tree housing development, but in terms of it's just not relevant to me. All I see are the charts, and all I see are the patterns on the charts. So right here, that's a very bullish development. It's a hammer candle to see prices come down, leave behind that long wick. The one thing that I would be looking at now, and we can see that prices did find a little bit of resistance near that 50-60 area. The one thing I kind of see here is the possibility for some kind of head and shoulder thing shaping up, at least in the short term. So 50-60 would be at least short term, and for scalpers out there, that could be an area maybe to look for short trades. But personally, I wouldn't do that because obviously the trend is up. We should be looking for long trades. Even if you are a short-term trader, we should be looking for long trades again. But if prices can get above that 50-60 area, and maybe even just a few hourly closes, again, what I'm looking for is prices heading back at the short, at least initially, to that 52.80 area here, which should, in my opinion, act as at least short-term resistance for the pair. But again, this all depends as long as prices remain above this line. Speaking of uptrends, the Aussie dollar. And let me zoom out a little bit and give you a better view of this line. We can see a long-term trend to the upside. The one thing I would mention is that, let me zoom out a little more. This is the important thing to look at, because if you see how steep this line is. So when lines are that steep, obviously there's a good chance of them being violated. The velocity of the uptrend can't possibly sustain itself. So the way to think about these things in the proper dimension, if you will, is to kind of look at this abstract and see that prices could be coming down to maybe this area here, where they're going to form, that could be another price point that would form a more gently sloping uptrend. And so maybe that's what's happening right now. So zooming in a little bit and showing you a trade that I might possibly look at personally, we could see that this is obviously the previous support line. We can see the close beneath it, an entire candle actually was formed beneath the line, and now prices are coming back to the upside here and testing this line, the previous support line from the opposite side, which should now act as resistance. So I don't mind this trade here, maybe looking for prices to actually come up and touch this line and maybe a stop 50 pips or so above the line. Sometimes you just got to take a chancey on these things. I mean, it's obviously it's counter trend, but if this is a turn, at least I would say a medium term turn in the pair, medium term turn, that's kind of difficult to say, then there could be a few hundred pips here on the upside. So in my opinion, with a 50 pip stop, it's worth it. The one thing I would caution against is that you only give this one shot, only give it one chance. You don't want to sit there and say, ooh, like if prices come up, leave behind a long wick. That's something I would just leave on the table and say, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to wait for that one opportunity, maybe give it 50 pips or so. It's okay. And again, if prices move in my favor, then I'll look to take profits, obviously. But I'm going to expect to be wrong. And when you expect to be wrong, that's when you manage your risk properly. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening. I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome you all to the DailyFX forums. I want to go through the process of how I personally access the forums and how maybe you at home, if you want to access the forums in the future, might do so. The first thing you would do is go to www.dailyfx.com, and that will bring up, obviously, dailyfx.com, and usually there on the upper right hand corner I'll go ahead and click on where it says forum, and that will bring up the first page of the forums. And this view, I personally don't use this view, but this view actually shows you the most recent posts on all the threads within the different sections and a little detail about those posts, so you can read through and see if there's something catches your interest. But personally, I go ahead and just click on forums and view them in the more traditional sense. Now, these are different threads within the forum. There's a section on education, such as DailyFX course instructor tips, which would be good for newer traders, and then for more advanced traders. And I just want to go ahead, personally, the way I use the forums is I would go through the individual threads, just looking for trade ideas, maybe looking at charts, looking at certain lines that maybe I didn't put up on my chart, but another trader might have put up on their chart. I tend to, shy away from using direct trade recommendations from other forum members, but it helps me to sort of even out my analysis, make sure that I'm seeing things, with the right mind in terms of, I might be missing stuff that other traders can see, and that's my personal way of using the forum. Every trader is going to be a little bit different in how they use it. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to become an active participant of the members, you would have to go ahead and register. So that's what I'm going to go through now, is the registration process. So assuming you're brand new to the forums, or maybe you've been here a few times and you're not really sure how it works, so I just want to walk through again the registration process. This would be the front page where you would access, or the previous page. You'd have the same little box here on the left hand side. My username and password are already filled out here, but assuming you're a new member, you would click on where it says register, and that will bring up the registration page. If you give me one moment here while my browser loads. And actually first we're going to have some terms of service and DailyFX forum rules. I do suggest reading through the forum rules. Obviously, profanity and spam and things like that are not allowed, but it also gives you insight on how to use the forum and how different traders can use it, in terms of their individual needs. So you would go down to the bottom there. You'd click on where it says I have read all the rules, and then you would go ahead to the register, the formal registration page, and that will bring up here. And you can go ahead and select the username, and how about we'll use 4x, and that name is already in use, so maybe add a few more x's there. Again, it really, your individual username is up to you, and you go ahead and fill in your password, your email address. Now, the most difficult aspect of registration for the DailyFX forums will be figuring out these letters in the box here. Now, I'm a semi-intelligent person, but I have a very difficult time figuring out which letters and numbers to use. Now, there is a reason for this madness. It helps with security, but I would suggest just going ahead and keep on clicking that refresh image until something comes through that you can actually identify and see. Then you can go ahead and enter your birthday, but you can decide whether or not to display that to other forum members. And then also, if you were referred by somebody, you can enter that information there. The time zone, that should default to your computer, but you should double check and make sure. And then you can opt in, and I would suggest opting in for these emails in terms if the administrators want to go ahead and send you some notices about the forum, and then you would complete registration. Now what happens is they would send you an email to the email address that you put up here, and that email will include a link, and all you would have to do is go ahead and click on that link, and that link will bring you inside the forum, and you would now be a member of the DailyFX forums. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening.